Mark, a very good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Doing great. Thank you.
Something that you're familiar with, is situationally, I guess at least, the Eli Manning situation, how it all ended in with the Giants. Is the Ben Roethlisberger situation starting to grow eerily reminiscent, or could it grow kind of reminiscent of that?
Yeah, I saw this coming last year. Towards the end of last year, I kept saying at the beginning of the year it looked just like it. You know, when those old guys that it meant so much to the organization, it just that people make the decisions with emotions as opposed to a football decision. And if you just looked at Ben and you saw the way he played, you could tell that it was over with for him. And once you start excuse making for a quarterback, and if we do this, if we get the running back, if we get the line, if we get a better offensive coordinator, that's when you're in trouble. And this was the same thing we dealt with Eli, and you know how much Eli meant to the Giants organization, and maybe even more so than Ben, just because Eli was so squeaky clean and everybody loved him, and he was so beloved and by everyone. So, yeah, I mean, when I look at Ben and you guys see it week to week, it's just not there, and you can blame a lot of things, but just when you just watch him independent of the plays he has to make of everyone else, especially those fourth down plays, he did it 2 weeks ago, and you're like, wow, and then he did it twice again the last game. It's time.
Mark, Mike Tomlin almost unfailingly has the support of players, not just in his own locker room, but from around the league. Look at the kissy face he and Aaron Rodgers played this weekend. But what does it do to the players in his locker room when they see a guy who can't do it anymore, as much as they're publicly saying, like Deontay Johnson did yesterday, hey, that's my quarterback, when they see that the coach isn't willing to make that difficult decision?
That's tough because a lot of those players have his back as well, have Ben's back as well. And with the Giants, it was the same thing with Eli, where publicly everyone said the right things, but there was definitely an undercurrent that on the team of some younger guys are like, man, this guy is not doing it. And someone actually publicly said it when OBJ came out and said it. And, of course, he caught all kinds of hell for that. But he was right. But I think there's probably some of that sentiment going on with the Steelers now is that, the ownership, the front office, the coaches all have his back. But I guarantee you that there's some players that are like, man, this guy can't do it. And he's costing us games, but you'll never see that come out publicly.
So doesn't somebody has to be the bad guy here, right? If we can even describe it as being the quote unquote bad guy, but who does it have to be?
Well, it's got to be Tomlin. He's the one that makes the decisions, and I'm sure they're talking about it. Tomlin and Kevin Colbert and the ownership are talking about what if there is the time, if there is a best time, or they might just be like, no, we're going to let the guy play the whole year and let's not even talk about it. But people say that the bad guy, and I heard someone say last night, someone prominent, they owe it to Big Ben to let him play the season. You don't owe it to that guy. You owe it to your organization. You owe it to the team to put yourself in the best position to win games. Not owe it to someone for what they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's about we're trying to win right now, and this team is built now to try to win and not sacrifice everybody else, all those 52 other players on the team and coaches to say, let's keep this guy's feelings intact. And that's what people can't do. Someone doesn't want to, as you mentioned, be the bad guy, but it's really not being a bad guy. It's just doing what's best for your organization.
Marc Ross, NFL Network analyst, joining us here, Fan Morning Show. I heard you I saw you on television actually talking to Aditi about those fourth down plays that you cited. And they've been the big talk here in Pittsburgh, right? Tell me what your understanding of what happens at the scrimmage line, or how much latitude a guy that's been a quarterback that long for one franchise that has that much power, how much power he has at the scrimmage line in that moment, do you think, in terms of being able to check out of something?
Well, yeah, and I talked to Aditi. That was after just the first one. This wasn't even after the last game where he did it twice. And there definitely was not the play call to say catch the ball and as soon as you get it, throw it to Najee Harris immediately. That was not the play call. And the other one was get the ball and you see Deontay Johnson running across the line of scrimmage, throw it to him immediately. That's not the play call. And he's not a rookie. He knows the situation. You always talk about the down and distance, the situation. He knows the situation. The guy's been playing forever. And it's just something internally that happens in the mind of those quarterbacks and Eli did the same thing. You see a lot of older quarterbacks. They just want to get the ball and get it out of their hand as quickly as possible. And despite the down and distance in the situation where they just kind of lose track of that. And I think that's just what happened, where he's just so used to, and you see it throughout the game, just getting the ball and getting it out of his hand as quick as possible. And even in that situation where he's just, hey, you know what, I'm done with this. Let's get out of here. Let's get on the bus and go home. So, you know, when you have that happening, you're not putting your team, obviously, in any sort of position to win.
Former personnel executive from NFL Network, Marc Ross. Catch him every afternoon on NFL Now with us here on the Fan Morning Show. So we're trying to look for bright spots as we build up to the Denver game, Mark, and we talked this morning about how, while the offensive line is still not good by any measure, it has incrementally, if it was by very tiny increments, improved over the last 4 weeks. Najee Harris got up over 4 yards a carry this past week. Can you see, as someone who judges talent as part of what they do, can you see this offensive line and Najee in this running game starting to give this offense some sort of identity?
I think it'll be hard just because the defense coordinators look at the Steelers and they see what they have to do to beat them, and they know how limited they are. So each week it's going to be a serious struggle, and that's hard. You know, when a defense coordinator just has to game plan for just a limited amount of things to attack, it makes it so much more advantageous for them. So. Yeah, if you're talking about Najee getting over 4 yards of carry, you need to see how that came, you know, with those games they're kind of getting beat in. But, you know, this week, a bright spot, Denver is playing with Drew Lock. So there's a bright spot where this might be a 10-9 game. And, you know, because the Broncos defense is pretty salty too. So, you know, that's the bright spot. If Teddy B doesn't play and Drew Lock plays, here's might be a victory here. But, you know, just looking at the grand scheme of things, especially in that division now, that the way the Ravens are playing and Cleveland's playing and Cincinnati's coming on, it might be a struggle here to get back in the mix.
Mark, as a front office guy, do you and you know, if you're thinking about this decision that may be hastened here, does the bye week come at the right time? Can they afford to wait for a couple more weeks? And just because you got that week off, does that make it sort of an artificial? Yeah, okay, if we're going to make a move, this is when we can make it.
Right. That's always traditionally the way to do it, right? Let's give this guy time. The bye week's the perfect time to get whoever the new starter acclimated into there and give him the extra week of practice and let the media situation die down over those 2 weeks as opposed to it all being rushed. But, yeah, I think they're going to give Ben as much rope as possible to show he can do it. And each week, hey, can he do it? Can he do it? Just because of, again, as I mentioned, the emotional aspect of it and deserving it. But yeah, the bye week has always been kind of that easy landing spot for a new quarterback, whether that's Mason Rudolph. And when I say Ben doesn't play, Mason's not the answer, and I don't think Haskins is the answer either. But you know, that's the situation the front office has put the team in, and you can't just keep going into the game knowing what Ben's giving you, where those other two guys, hey, at least they're going to give you a chance. At least they'll compete, and that's what you want in your quarterback if they're limited.
Now, last thing for you, on Wednesdays for a full hour, we have Doug Whaley in studio, and he told us to tell you that you don't get half the ratings that he gets. Not even half is what Whaley said, just so you know that.
Well, all his combined, I get half just in one day of all his shows combined.
Oh!
I think yeah. And it's hard, too, when people confuse me with Randy Moss and not just Marc Ross. So I think that
man.
Can you guys let me live that down? That happens.
So people might be confused in the Pittsburgh circle to who actually is on today.
Anybody ever forget that?
Unless you were coached on that.
Perfect. Marc Ross, NFL Network analyst. Mark, we thank you. We'll talk again soon. We appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
We'll
Mark.
see
You
ya.
too. Just lit you up, Jim.
Wow.
Did that camera get the
Yes,
redness
I didn't
here?
even know that was coming. Check out our camera, 937 The Fans homepage. Click on the live video link. You can check out our YouTube page,
Jim
which I'm
blush.
sure that might make it on there. Our YouTube page, 937 The Fan. Just do a search on YouTube, and you'll find it right away.